Test Drive is made possible by EV Duty and Prevent a Lemon.
You know, this might be our last episode of Test Drive Spotlight for the 2018 season where we don't have any snow, at least not the entire time of the video, because I'm telling you, it's getting really cold out. It's one of the reasons why I'm so happy that we have yet another plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, because as always, the car is actually on right now, so it's nice and warm inside when we jump in for our walk around. Our spotlight is on this 2019 Volvo XC60 T8 Inscription. Much like the Volvo S90 T8 we featured last week, this has a dual motor setup. There's a 2-liter supercharged and turbocharged engine up front and an electric motor in the back. We're going to be going over everything about this compact crossover SUV and figuring out if it's worth the $85,000 MSRP. That's right, my friends, $85,000 Canadian for this vehicle here in front of me. It is pricey. It's about $3,000 less than the Volvo S90 we featured last week, and it is about as fully loaded as it comes. You're really only missing the booster seats in the outboard rear seats. Everything else is option on this car, so it does give you a good idea of what a fully loaded XC60 would look like. That price is a lot. Now, Volvo is in a unique position to be able to offer this car at that price because there really aren't a lot of plug-in hybrid electric SUVs out there. Something like the BMW X5 comes as a plug-in hybrid, Mercedes GLC has a plug-in option, the Tesla Model X is a full electric, and we also featured the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV. Now, as mentioned in our introduction, this does use the same T8 motor that Volvo was using in the S90 that we featured last week. So you have a 2-liter supercharged and turbocharged engine up front, produces 314 horsepower, and it will drive the front wheels and charge the 10.4 kilowatt hour battery that's located where the drive shaft would normally be on pretty much any other vehicle. The electric motor in the back is good for about 86 horsepower, drives the rear wheels, and can be locked into all-wheel drive mode, so both motors work together to push you forward. 400 horsepower, 480 pound-feet of torque. It's actually a really powerful vehicle. And when people complained that I didn't like the Alfa Romeo Stelvio because it was slow, it had 280 horsepower out of that engine. This has 400. Now I know it's a hybrid, but still, this has more power. Now up front you have a full suite of LED headlights. They will move when you're turning the wheel, and the automatic high beams are some of the best. They aren't as good as the S90, but they are really good. They come on and will gradually get a little bit brighter after they've turned on, after about 2 or 3 seconds, so that if they turn on by accident as somebody's coming up the hill, it's not as powerful the second they come on. But I do find that the automatic feature, superb, works every time. Now you don't get the quartering lamps or fog lights with the T8 model. The lower versions, the non-hybrids, will get that if you do prefer it, and we're going to be talking about that next week. We've got the Volvo XC90 T6, so no hybrid coming next week. We also talked about Volvo's IntelliSafe system. It's their safety suite, moving actually the front radar sensor into the camera system up in the windshield. It does everything else that any other car would do: active cruise control, lane keep assist, blind spot monitoring, forward collision avoidance, and all of that. Cross traffic alert on the front and the back as well. But there are a couple key things that we didn't talk about with the S90 just for time. For example, this has proper collision mitigation. Not only will it try to stop the car if you're going to hit something, but it will move the car out of the way. So if you're coming up and somebody stopped in the middle of the road last second and the car detects that there's nobody around, it will veer you out of the way. It will also prevent you from hitting something like a moose or a deer. It has animal detection built into this, because in Sweden, it is a big problem. Elk are a huge issue down there. And even here, deer are a big problem in this part of Canada. So it will do the same thing that it would for a car. It will either stop as quickly as it can, or if it detects that it can move out of the way safely, it will do that. Really cool technology. Now, this also uses the pilot assist feature that we talked about on the S90, so when you are using active cruise control, you can switch into a semi-autonomous driving mode. Hands still need to be on the steering wheel, and you really should still be paying attention. A couple other housekeeping things to talk about. This does have the 4C active air suspension setup, so it does lower and raise the vehicle automatically when you start driving and when you park the vehicle. There are controls in the trunk to be able to lower it or raise it if you're putting in something big, and it really does make a difference when you're on the road. It really does calculate a little bit better, and we'll talk about that a little bit more on our road test. You also have front and rear parking sensors with sensors on the side of the vehicle. That helps when pulling into a parking spot or using the semi-autonomous parking system. We don't usually like them, but it will get you into a parallel spot and out of it if it's a little difficult for you to do on your own. You also have a 360-degree camera system. Like we mentioned on the S90, it is pretty much the best system we've used in terms of image quality. Lining it up with the 360 portion, though, could be improved. But let's go around the back now and talk about the couple features there before I freeze to death. Now, I do hope you've actually watched our S90 video from last week. We did a lot different with that video. We spent a lot more time going over that vehicle, talking about a lot of the features, interior, exterior, and the drive, and some little housekeeping stuff for test drive as well. But because we're filming this before that video goes up, I'm not sure how the reaction has been. So I do hope it's been positive. I apologize if you guys really love the in-depth stuff, because we're not doing it as much here. But by next week, we certainly will. But let us know in the comments if you do like the longer videos, us spending a little bit more time on each car. But for now, we'll talk about the back of this. Now, we didn't say anything about the design on the front, but I have to say, ooh, it looks good. I mean, I love the design of the current generation Mazda CX-5. It's pretty much the reason why we bought it. This looks better. Now, I know it's a luxury car. I know it costs almost 3 times the price, but man, it just looks really good. The front, the sides, even the back. I think my favorite part about the design is how the trunk comes down, gets to the Volvo badge, and then goes back in a little bit. It's got this curve, a little bit of a hump on the back. Ah, excellent. Now, because this is a luxury vehicle, they do have extra little features. We do find it on other vehicles as well. But you can swipe your foot, trunk will open up automatically. Now, the space back here is very good for a compact SUV such as this. In fact, the privacy shield that's built into the back here, you just flip it up and it slides up, slides out of the way. It doesn't go back into its home, but it slides out of the way so you can get stuff in and out of the trunk. And you just pull it back down and it locks into place. You can remove it, you can take it out if you want, but I think it's a really interesting way of doing things. Now, I mentioned there is a self-leveling suspension, but you can also raise and lower the vehicle from back here. So for example, it is in its highest position right now, but I just hold the button down. Oh yeah, there you go. It's a little bit of a difference. So you can lower it, you can raise it back up if you want to. So if you're loading up big items, something that's heavy, you want to be able to play around with maybe making it a little easier for you to get in, it does have that option. But I have to say that overall, the look of the car is really fantastic. I like just how it all flows together. It really is an evolution over the previous first generation XC60. It's not a complete revolution. It really does follow a lot of the same design, especially on the back. I think it's the front that got the biggest upgrade. Now let's jump inside, because I am cold, talk about the interior of this vehicle. Now, if you watched our episode on the S90, this car's interior should come as no surprise. It is laid out pretty much the same way, and it makes sense. I mean, all the auto manufacturers are doing that anyway. You have your color head-up display up top. When you're using the built-in navigation system, it will show you a detailed map on the head-up display. I think it's really nice, but basically it just shows you your speed and any signs. It has traffic sign recognition, so it'll tell you if there's a stop sign or a school zone or speed limit changes like that. Moving down, the cluster computer is really well laid out. We do like it. We saw it on the S90. It's got a really good look to it, functional and elegant. It shows you things like the IntelliSafe system. When it starts up, it goes over all the options and everything that's available on the vehicle to make sure that they're active and working. Also shows you your seat belts. So when all the occupants are in the vehicle, it'll show if there's somebody sitting, like me right now. It's giving me a red sign for the seat to tell me that somebody's sitting in it and their seat belt's not on. So once you buckle it in, it will show you that the belts are on. So really safe stuff going on there. Haven't driven any other vehicles that have occupant sensors such as that on the vehicles, aside from the driver's seat. Now, because this is a compact crossover SUV, we're not expecting everything to be over-the-top luxury. You do have the leather-stitched dashboard up top and a little bit of the center card here between the dashboard and the open pore wood, but the rest of it really is plastic. Center console here is, top of the door cards are, and even the side of the door cards are as well. And that's the thing, you are paying essentially mid-size or full-size luxury SUV pricing for this type of vehicle. Now, you take a look at the Mercedes GLC, take a look at the BMW X3, even going up to the X5 or GLE, you're still looking in that kind of price range for this car because of that plug-in hybrid system. So it is pricier than you will get on other vehicles. Jump down to the T6, save a little bit, but it is still expensive. Now let's talk about this open pore wood. Ow! Ha! That's called acting. It is open pore wood and you actually can feel it. I don't think you'll actually get a splinter from it, but it really does feel like actual wood. That's because it is. Now it runs along here, you've got one piece in front of the passenger here. It's essentially one piece of cut wood that goes all the way around. And you've got a little piece here on this side, another one on the driver's side for your air vent, and then throughout the center console here. Your cup holders and like a little change area are covered. For a new car, it looks phenomenal. I like it. I like the texture and feel of it. But 10, 15 years from now, I know a lot of people aren't going to be keeping this car that long. It'll be in the used market by then, but I'm just wondering how this type of wood will hold up long term. The infotainment system in the center is the one thing that we didn't quite like on the S90. It's the same system here. I just find that it has a little bit of an input lag, especially on startup and switching things like the drive mode. You have to click this button in, switch to the different drive modes, and go from there. You can see the car is now raising itself back up. I don't know why. We just put it into pure mode, but you can do things like hold the battery, charge the battery, go into your safety settings, put the headrests down in the back because the center row has power headrest removal. You also have all the other settings for things like your wiper blade service position, so you can pull them up, and then your media and navigation system. You can find out everything about it by going to our S90 video. I'm not going to spend too much time with it, but again, we do find that maybe adding a little bit more processing power to this and maybe rearranging a little bit of the UI will go a long way, because it is a nice looking system. It's just not our favorite. A few other features real quick before we get on our road test. You do have a bezel-less HomeLink mirror here with a compass built into it, power folding mirrors, panoramic sunroof with the ability to close it from the front here. You also have LED lighting on the inside and minimal ambient lighting. We talked about it with the S90. There's essentially a couple lights built into the headliner. You can change between 6 different colors. It's not quite as good as the S90. It doesn't run along the door cards or the center console here, and it doesn't change the rest of the interior lighting. So you've got a few little accent lights on top of your white lights for everything else. Seat comfort is phenomenal. We talked about that on the S90. Very similar. I sit very well. I have no complaints. It's a little bit firmer than you might be used to, but you have control for all the lumbar and bolsters. You have front heated and ventilated seats, a 3-stage heated steering wheel, and they can come on automatically when you start the car up. In the back, space is good too for a compact crossover SUV. Got no problem sitting back there. My daughter fits perfectly. You do have outboard heated seats with a regular 12-volt cigarette lighter and an armrest with a small cup holder. But now it's time to go on our road test. We're going to be taking this around town, talking about how it drives, performs, and handles, doing a little bit more performance-oriented stuff with this. I know it makes more sense to have done that with the S90, but we really did want to keep it in full electric mode. So we're going to be doing a little bit more of a performance test with this bad boy. And we're also going to be talking about how it fares both as a regular daily driver on our total commute for how much fuel economy we've saved, as well as on our test circuit. Now, before we take the Volvo XC60 on the road, we need to make sure it's fully charged first, especially now that we're doing our test circuit. We want to make sure that the battery is fully charged. With our EV Duty Smart Home charging system, we can get this 10.4 kilowatt hour battery charged in about 2.5 hours. You can monitor everything from the app, such as your current charge, how much it's cost you to charge it up, and you can even use partner charging stations all across Canada. For more information on the EV Duty Smart Home Charger, visit elmec.ca. You know, I've had the pleasure of driving both the Volvo S90 and this XC60 back-to-back, so I've got to use the exact same power delivery system for about 2 weeks now, and I have to say that the 400 horsepower, 480 foot-pound of torque all-wheel drive system just works exceptionally well. Now, we haven't averaged as good with our overall fuel economy that we did with the S90. We've driven 636 kilometers as of this exact second, and I've done 6.3 liters per 100 kilometers. It's quite a bit lower than what we were doing with the Volvo S90. And it's mostly because this is a bigger vehicle in terms of overall size, right? It's not as aerodynamic as a sedan is. As we move forward into the winter temperatures here, we are going to get less electric mileage out of these vehicles that we're doing. But to be fair, this probably will be our last PHEV that we're going to be doing until hopefully the start of 2019. We do want to test some of them that we did do earlier in the year in the winter to see what their overall performance is like, because it does drop because the batteries just can't hold as much charge. They aren't as efficient as they are during the warmer temperatures. Now, it's only 7 degrees right now. Feels like about 1 degree with the wind chill. This morning was 0, feels like -7. So it was quite a difference in terms of temperature. So our battery range hasn't been very good. Now, it's interesting because this car really is rated at 41 kilometers, full EV range through the European system to be able to determine actual EV range. But when we got the paperwork from Volvo, they actually said that it's only good for about 25 kilometers. And I definitely agree with that in this weather too. Yeah, you could probably get a little bit more if you're driving differently, but we haven't really done better than about 25 to 30 kilometers stretching it on full EV. In-town stuff, absolutely great. There's no doubt about it. For what I do on a daily basis, driving my daughter to and from school, getting groceries, going back and forth to do little errands here and there, full EV mode works really well. But even when we're in hybrid mode, which I'm not in right now, we are in the pure mode for as much EV use as possible. But even in hybrid mode, you do get much better fuel economy. We did do some testing. We still haven't done our full 100 kilometer test drive circuit, but we have done some testing. We can get that number under 6 liters per 100 kilometers on longer distance driving because the batteries do help to reduce your overall fuel consumption. So I have to say, for a big vehicle like this, that's really good. A lot of the other compact crossover SUVs we filmed this year have done in the ballpark of 8 to 10 liters per 100. 6.3 right now, that's really good, and we'll go over it in our wrap-up segment at the end, what our final numbers were, both for our overall day-to-day driving habits as well as our test circuit for the end here. But I did tease a little bit that we're going to be doing some more performance-oriented driving, and it's true, we will. Yeah, the battery is here about half charged, so I can't do everything in EV mode anyway, so we might as well go into performance mode. Now, because this is a crossover, we actually have a fifth option for when it comes to what you can drive. There's all-wheel drive mode, pure hybrid power, but then there's also off-road mode, and you actually have to slow down quite a bit. We're doing 30, there we go, under 30 kilometers. It will open up the off-road mode. Now, the self-leveling suspension right now, it's raising up the car because it's thinking that we're actually going to be going off-road, and it'll probably end up putting the car into a more off-road oriented drive system where the all-wheel drive will be working all the time. But I don't really want to be doing that because we aren't going to be going off-road with this car. We've done that before on test drive, and that didn't really work too well for me. But we are going to keep it in power mode. Now, power mode changes the tachometer to actually show up. Before it was an eco-oriented one. Now I actually see my tach. Now, you can put the car into manual shift mode. If you pull on your crystal gear lever down, it will shift it. So let's see, can I actually use this vehicle as a performance-oriented car? We're in first. To turn off the traction control, you actually have to go into the menu system here, and you can't hold it because if you do, it's like your iPhone. It'll try to rearrange the app. So we do have traction control off. We are in power mode. We're in first. Oh! See, then it kicked that up itself, but holy! That was a good amount of power there. Yeah, we're well over the speed limit there. But wow! That was really quick, right? 400 horsepower. You don't feel it when you're driving this car normally because, especially in hybrid mode or pure mode, you're trying to use the electric motor. It's only good for about 86 horsepower. The 314 horsepower gas motor really doesn't get used a lot on our testing, but man, that was really good. If you were wondering why I thought something like the Alfa Romeo Stelvio, when we featured it before, 280 horsepower, was slow, that's why. Because this car has more power and it's in the same segment. Costs a lot more than the one that we featured, and really it's not going to be competing in the same terms as an Alfa Romeo Stelvio. But man, that's pretty quick. We're going to do it again. But you can see it does pick up pretty well. That power does get to the wheels very well. And the transmission, you know, it shifts as well as you would expect. It's not a dual clutch transmission, right? So you're not getting pure performance out of it. But for a regular 8-speed automatic transmission, it actually works pretty well. Now, usually I do mention it when we hit the 100 kilometer mark. I didn't do it for that first run because it just was so quick. I wasn't expecting it. So let's try it again. I will tell you when we hit 100 based on my HUD. So it might not be 100% accurate, but see if you can time it yourself. Oh, you can feel it pull a little bit. 100. There we go. That's pretty quick. That is pretty quick for a car that isn't meant to be a performance vehicle. Wow. I'm liking it. But I gotta say, it really does do a good job getting the power if you needed it. You don't need it all the time though, and that's what I like about this PHEV system, is you don't actually need to use it if you don't have to. And in fact, like I said, we've been using it pretty much exclusively in electric only mode as much as we can. So again, we're saving as much at the pump as possible. So don't be worried if you're thinking, man, I don't know if I'm really ready to go into a partial electric vehicle. It doesn't have enough power. Yeah, this one does. But let's talk about the ride and handling of this vehicle. It is a luxury class segment, so you would expect it to be exceptionally smooth. And it is. I do find, especially on a road like this, it is very nice. Going around corners, though, it handles as you would expect a compact crossover SUV to do. I don't feel like it's going to tip over, but it's certainly nothing like a regular sports car. Take this turn, maybe a little bit quicker than you would normally take it. And you can see I didn't move too much. It does use that 4-corner active suspension system that we talked about on the S90, so it's always manipulating the system. So as you're going around corners, going over bumps, it is doing calculations much faster than any human could ever do in order to make the ride a little smoother. And taking it into our little corner here, going again a little bit quicker than I normally would in a regular crossover, and I'm still more or less centered in my seat here. It really does keep you in position quite well. I do like it. Going over bumps as well, very nice. You don't feel them as much. Interior road noise isn't too bad. I'd say that the S90 was better, but you can certainly have a great conversation with the passengers in your vehicle, not necessarily just the person beside you, but you should be able to talk to the people in the back with no problem. And I would imagine that you guys can hear me pretty well on the video.
Let's take a minute to talk about the fuel economy during our week, as it pertains directly to our likes and dislikes with the 2019 Volvo XC60 T8. We drove a total of 877 kilometers for a combined fuel economy of 6.3 liters per 100 kilometers, or about 37 mpg equivalent for those in the US. During our 100 kilometer test loop, the XC60 averaged only 5.9 liters per 100 kilometers, or about 47 mpge, with dry roads and temperatures just below 10 degrees Celsius. Now that we've driven a few vehicles around our circuit, we have a much better idea of how we can compare fuel economy numbers against other vehicles we drive moving forward, which was the whole point of this test circuit in the first place. So the overall fuel economy is definitely a like for us. The exterior design is also on point, giving the XC60 a handsome makeover when compared to the first generation. We also found that the performance of its twin-engine hybrid to exceed our expectations for a compact crossover, easily beating out the other models we've tested this year. Volvo's continued emphasis on safety also scores big points for us, going above and beyond what other luxury manufacturers are offering in terms of active enhanced safety tech. And once again, the Bowers & Wilkins audio system is a huge upgrade and well worth the $3,250 Canadian for this upgrade. After our week with the XC60, we didn't have too much to dislike about it. Really, it's just the same points that we made with our episode on the S90 T8. The infotainment system didn't grow on us, and we still had latency issues on startup, especially when selecting the drive mode and engaging reverse. We still feel that the drive mode selector makes changing into eco mode unnecessarily difficult, especially if you slip into sport mode by accident and activate the gas motor. The issue with the PHEV charging cancelling our charging session was also persistent with the XC60, but a commenter on my Instagram page @NileLivesy claims that this should be fixed with a software update from Volvo. And finally, it's hard not to add price to this list. I know Volvo has a unique offering with the compact crossover PHEV. However, for about the same MSRP, you could get a similarly equipped 2018 BMW X5 xDrive 40e with a 9 kWh battery and 308 horsepower total. Alternatively, the Mercedes-Benz GLC 350e 4MATIC, when similarly equipped, is closer to an MSRP of $77,000 and a slightly smaller battery with 8.8 kWh. Whether or not the Volvo will get more range or better fuel economy will have to be tested, and we hope we can get both of these PHEV models from BMW and Mercedes-Benz in 2019. Either way, the 2019 Volvo XC60 T8 Inscription really has a lot going for it, and might be a serious contender for the ever-growing compact luxury crossover market, along with the partial electric market. But what do you think? Is it too costly for a PHEV, or is the luxury not quite up to the rest of the competition? Let us know in the comments below. As always, your support helps make this show possible. So if you enjoyed the video, please consider clicking the thumbs up button and subscribing if you haven't done so already. Until next time, take care.